The sudden death of Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi and foreign minister in a helicopter crash has not only impacted Iran, but has come as a shock to many nations of the Middle East and the global south. The 8th president of Iran had taken office in 2021 and was steering the West Asian nation amid difficult times arising out of conflicts and instability in the region. Let's take a look at this report to understand that how the untimely death of Iranian president is going to impact the region.
Massive crowds gathered in Tehran and Birjand, the hometown of late President Raisi, to pay their respects to their president and foreign minister. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei led a prayer for the victims of the accident in the country's capital. The ceremony was attended by a number of foreign heads of estates and dignitaries. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei announced 5 days of mourning following the death of the country's president Ibrahim Raisi in a helicopter crash. Various other nations followed the suit. Lebanon declared 3 days of state mourning, and India declared 1 day of mourning following Iranian president demise. Iran foreign policy under the rule of late President Raisi not only benefited Iran's ties with its neighbors, but also helped the West Asia nations to forge better relations with powers like India, with which it finalized a long-term agreement on development of the crucial Chabahar port.
Thanks to, in fact, the two people who unfortunately died yesterday in the helicopter crash, the President of Iran and the Foreign Minister of Iran, because of their interest and their initiative, we were actually able to finalize a long-term agreement.
President Raisi's death comes at a time of increased tensions in West Asia, as well as the time when the Iran faces an economic downturn and sanctions from the Western world. His death leaves a void in the Iranian leadership, with the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei turning 86 this July. Former Iranian Vice President Mohammad Mukhbir has been appointed as interim president. According to the Article 31 of the Iran's constitution, the interim president is duty-bound to make arrangements for the elections of a new president within a maximum of 50 days, and elections have been preponed to June 28 this year.
The passing of Iranian president creates more uncertainty at the top of the political echelons in Iran. And that compounds the ambiguity that exists, and I think makes the situation a bit riskier, especially if Israel comes to the conclusion that Iran will be internally focused in the next few weeks, conducting an election and putting a new government together. And that provides maybe an opportunity to push back harder against Iran and its allies in the region, like Hezbollah in Lebanon.
President Raisi leaves behind a mixed legacy in Iran. His funeral was attended by Qatar's Amir and the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and the Indian Vice President, among others, highlighting his influence as a leader in the world today. He played a significant role in improving Iran ties with other nations in West Asia. However, his failure to negotiate the nuclear deal has worsened Iran's relations with the West. As Iran elects its new leader, he has a big void to fill, as well as meet many emerging challenges. Iran continues to be an important regional leader and a leading voice in the global south. As Iran mourns the loss of its beloved president, it is important for both the Iranian people and the world that the Iran find a new leader willing to be Iran's representative at the global stage.
In an initiative to make every voter count, the Election Commission of India has facilitated door-to-door voting all over the country for the ongoing general elections. To encourage voting for persons with disability, the electoral body has provided services at all the polling booths for their convenience. India is currently holding the world's largest elections, whose results are going to be declared on 4th of June.
Voting is being held in the biggest election in the world's largest democracy. India is conducting general elections in 7 phases over a span of 7 weeks from April 19th to June 1st, results of which will be declared on June 4th. To ensure a smooth and fair voting process, the electoral body, Election Commission of India, is taking various initiatives. With an aim to facilitate voting for every citizen of the country, for the first time in Lok Sabha elections, the Commission has introduced vote from home services for a specific category of voters.
अब इस बार पूरे देश में पहली बार ये व्यवस्था एक साथ लागू होगी.
For the first time, this facility is being implemented all over the country simultaneously. We will send the form to all voters above 85 years of age and persons with more than 40% disability.
वो सब के पास
We will go to get one person's vote also if anyone who opts for this and doesn't want to go to the
पर
booth.
नहीं आना चाहते, घर से करना चाहते, तो हम घर में जाएंगे, एक आदमी का वोट लेने घर में जाएंगे.
This service enables voters with 40% benchmark disability and senior citizens above the age of 85 years to vote from their residence. The initiative encourages these voters to equally participate in the festival of democracy and exercise their right. Voting for these special categories undergoes a transparent process wherein a camera is present to ensure a fair electoral process. This maintains the secrecy of voting. This man has difficulty in walking, but this election he did not miss the opportunity to vote as officials of the Election Commission arrived at his doorstep with all essential arrangements.
Vote is a precious thing and is priceless. Today I feel valued after being able to vote.
For a disability-friendly election, the election body has launched a mobile application, Saksham. Differently abled people who opt to vote in person at the polling booths can avail number of services to make their voting procedure easier. Noteworthy features include voice assistance for the visually impaired and text-to-speech option for people with hearing difficulties. The registered voters can also file a complaint with the help of this app regarding any problem faced during the polling process. With the help of the Saksham app, number of options from registration of differently abled as a voter to requesting wheelchairs on election days is now a possibility. India has over 8.1 million registered voters above the age of 85 and more than 9 million under the differently abled category. This move by ECI enhances elector confidence among them and supports initiatives for improved service offerings. It marks a significant stride towards ensuring inclusivity and accessibility of the electoral process and in bolstering democratic participation. The election body is committed for building an equal access framework for persons with disabilities.
The ongoing unrest in France-ruled Pacific island, New Caledonia, has caused devastation in the capital, Noémia. The original population, called the Kanak community, is protesting against a bill passed by lawmakers in Paris giving voting rights to French citizens staying in New Caledonia for over 10 years, causing an unrest and fear of change of demography for the local population. French President Emmanuel Macron visited the crisis-hit region to bid peace.
The island country of New Caledonia in southwest Pacific is left with a trail of destruction after protests erupted in the capital Noémia. The French-ruled territory saw empty streets, burned vehicles and looted shops as roads were blocked by protesters' barricades. Amid the outrage, the airport remained shut, leaving several tourists stranded. Food supplies and medical essentials were severely impacted. A state of emergency has been declared in the island nation, with government trying to bring things back under control and has deployed over 3,000 personnel till the Paris Olympic. Riots broke after activists of the Kanak community opposed a new bill adopted by lawmakers in Paris that will allow French residents living in New Caledonia for more than 10 years to vote in provincial elections. Local residents fear that this will dilute the vote of Kanaks, who are the original inhabitants of New Caledonia and comprise more than 40% of the total population.
The crisis here is a big fail. Because the French government doesn't know how to control people here. They send more than 2,000 military to control, but it's a fail. all the people, they are always in front of the police and military and soldiers. They said, stop it, Macron, stop it with the law. Don't remove our right, indigenous right.
The riots are taking place in urban areas, and in urban areas in the greater Nomia, there are many young people, many families who have been marginalized. When you arrive in Nomia, there is contrast. In the same town, you will find places where there are squats. There are people who live without water, without electricity. They live in neighborhoods with social housing, which are far from employment, far from learning and training systems. And on the other side of the town, we have beaches. It feels like we are on the Côte d'Azur. It's a whole set of things that has brought about this situation. We are getting to a moment when we must recognize the colonial reality, which the current government is not doing, even though the Nomia Agreement was an agreement on decolonization.
More than a week after the riots killed 6 people and left hundreds injured, French President Emmanuel Macron visited the region. To bring peace after the worst riots in 4 decades, Macron held discussions with the local officials on politics and reconstruction.
I personally believe that the state of emergency should not be extended. Because, as I told you, I deeply believe that dialogue is necessary. But I appeal to the responsibility of all the leaders who are here today, because it will only be lifted if everyone, in their own responsibility, calls for the roadblocks to be lifted.
New Caledonia became a French overseas territory in 1946. The Nomia Accord gives voting rights only to citizens residing prior to 1998 and their children. This has helped maintain a civil peace for more than 25 years and made possible a process of decolonization. The pro-independence groups are now calling on French authorities for a broader dialogue and want the reform to be suspended. The countries of the global south need to pay attention to the way France is handling the crisis.
The North African nation of Tunisia is facing a nationwide divide as its president, Kais Saied, alleged foreign interference after the European Union, France and the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights expressed concerns over arrests of journalists, lawyers and civil rights activists. While many are voicing their support for the president, a large part are calling for Said's removal from office amid allegations of the president suppressing dissent in the African nation.
Thousands of Tunisians have been out on the streets as the northernmost country in Africa stands divided over the rule of its president, Kais Saied. While many Tunisians are backing President Saied over his allegations of Western interference, there are also those who are calling for his removal from the office amid political arrests. While many have extended their support for President Saied as the leader called out the West for interfering in the country's domestic affairs, demonstrators marched in the capital Tunis on Sunday carrying pictures of Saied and banners urging the West to leave Tunisia alone.
I, like all the Tunisian people, we came out to reject interference in national sovereignty. We came from everywhere with our own money, without any support. We came only to say no to foreign interference and to denounce the blatant French interference in our national sovereignty.
On the other hand, lawyers in Tunisia protested the arrest of their colleagues, saying that one of them had been tortured during his detention. At least 10 people, including journalists, lawyers, and officials of the civil society groups, were arrested this month for speaking out against the president and the handling of the country's migration crisis. The European Union, France, and the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights have all expressed concern, demanding clarification on the arrests.
Today we are supporting Professor Mahdi Zagrouba, who was tortured at his detention center. Despite this, the public prosecution has not taken any action to open an investigation against the perpetrators. We will track them down and file necessary complaints because this is our right.
Meanwhile, political opponents of President Saied are demanding a date for free and fair election as his term comes to an end this year. Sayed had come to power following free elections in 2019 after the death of incumbent president Beji Caid Essebsi. 2 years later, Sayed shut down the parliament and expanded his executive powers, giving him major control of the state's affairs.
Today people are being arrested for anything, absolutely anything. On top of all that, we are undermining the upcoming elections. Tunisia will be on the brink of crisis and collapse. Therefore, we advocate for holding the elections on the scheduled date, ensuring they are conducted within the framework of freedom and equal opportunity.
As Tunisians remain divided, the country also grapples with increasing migration as it stands as a key transit point for migrants from Syria, Bangladesh and sub-Saharan African nations. Tunisia's economic situation also continues to worsen, with citizens facing declining living standards and low rate of employment. The ongoing protests underline the nation's deepening political crisis, while its leadership heads towards an uncertain fate.
We will take a small break here and be back with more Global South stories on the other side. Keep watching.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday 8 p.m. only on DD India.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights and authentic information.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India and this is Voice of the Global South. Let's take a look at our next stories. Bolivia is facing a major health crisis arising out of the shortages of US dollars. Yes, you have heard it right. The South American nation is heavily reliant on imports for many basic commodities, including medicines and other healthcare equipment, along with even food and fuel. The crisis in Bolivia is not just limited to one nation, but points to a larger problem with several nations of the Global South with underdeveloped industries that are dependent on other economies for import, even for basic commodities like medicines, fuel and food.
Edwin Luna, a cancer patient, is running from one pharmacy to another in search of a drug for his chemotherapy. In the South American nation Bolivia, thousands of such patients are finding it increasingly difficult to obtain life-saving medicines and even items of basic necessities, as the nation grapples with shortage of US dollars required to import these items.
This small bottle Rantidine used to cost 2 Bolivianos. Now it costs 6 Bolivianos. And still it's hard to find it. You have to search for it a lot. This is due to the lack of dollars. There are no dollars in pharmacies, so they can't bring drugs in the hospital. If I don't get the drug, I won't be able to get chemotherapy.
But why is Bolivia facing a dollar crunch? Like other South American nations, Bolivia is also dependent on US dollars to carry out its international transactions. The country is highly dependent on imports of basic necessities, including medicines, food and fuel. However, Bolivia's international reserves have plunged from $15 billion a decade ago to about $1.7 billion last month. This comes after Bolivia's exports of natural gas failed to rake in much currency home. Frustrated over the country's faltering healthcare system, marred by economic turmoil and corruption, many unions marched on the streets of Bolivian capital La Paz, demanding solutions from President Luis Arce's government. Meanwhile, Bolivia's central bank has restricted access to dollars and is charging double-digit commissions to raise the market price of dollar. While the official exchange rate stands at 6.96 Bolivianos, the rate saw a steep rise in the parallel market.
The central bank doesn't have dollars to supply to importers. Importers have to draw to the parallel market or the financial system. But the financial system doesn't have enough dollars, which has caused commissions to soar. At the same time, the financial system must buy dollars and find dollars at the parallel market.
Earlier this year in February, President Luis Arce revealed measures to increase investment and exports to tackle the dollar crisis. However, the dwindling reserves continue to raise concerns of devaluation of the domestic currency. As Bolivia is severely hit by the dollar crisis along with corruption, the nation could be staring at an exorbitantly high inflation. An alarming situation for a nation which has been maintaining the lowest average inflation figures in the whole of Latin American region in the last 2 decades. The condition of Bolivia now is similar to that of many South American nations that rely heavily on imports for goods of basic necessities and consumption.
One bright spot for Sudan amidst the pain and misery of entrenched warfare is its gold industry. Gold exports still continue to jump despite a decline in production levels compared with last year. DD India's Naba Moiddin reports from Port Sudan.
Sudan has exported $600 million worth of gold since the beginning of this year alone. That's according to reports published by the Ministry of Mineral Resources. It's a 160% increase in exports compared to the same period of 2023.
I'm in Port Sudan's gold market, one of the country's main markets for gold that is collected here to be exported. This particular sector is growing amid a deteriorating economy and a prolonged conflict, which means this precious metal is helping the country from falling further into economic collapse.
Sudan has recently agreed to increase its gold exports to Russia on the back of the market opening up to the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. Sudan exported about 17 tons in the first 4 months of the year. Production levels are thought to be higher than official records, but smuggling is playing a pivotal role amid poor security. The jump in production is also attributed to the country's need for foreign currency to meet the cost of war.
The market has never boomed as much. There's high demand and the price is fair for us and for exporters. We hope the sector holds.
The market has experienced a couple of months of closure due to the state's regulations, but now we're experiencing an unprecedented increase and a stable market. We hope that the state encourages production as well as exports to keep the records high and get the maximum benefit.
Most of the gold comes from Northern State, River Nile State, Kordofan and parts of the Blue Nile, the few regions that are still considered safe. Sudan has lost its only gold refinery in Khartoum since the war broke out in April 2023. The state is planning to build a new gold refinery in the Red Sea state so it can produce more fine gold and expand its exports. Naba Moiddin, reporting from Port Sudan in Sudan for DD India.
Well, that's it in this edition of Voice of the Global South. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. You can also connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. Also check out our website ddindia.co.in. From my entire team, goodbye and keep watching DD India.
एक्सरे कैसे करवाएंगे सर?
चुनाव की जो नामांकन पत्र है उसके अमाउंट का एनालिसिस करो ना।
तो बहुत सारे नेता लपेटे में आएंगे सर।
भाई कोई नेता ही पहले आने चाहिए।
इस चुनाव में क्या जनता के मन में ये मुद्दा उठता है कि उनको एक स्थायी सरकार चाहिए, मजबूत सरकार चाहिए?
अभी देखिए इनका इंडी गठबंधन के अंदर चर्चा क्या है कि भाई 5 साल 5 प्रधानमंत्री, 5 साल 5 प्रधानमंत्री। एक्चुअली वो ये प्रयोग अलग से हो चुका है।